Thank you for watching QTV with the news. My name is Diana Sumbwe. We take a look at stories making headlines. Copperbelt Police Chief Charity Katanga has warned that police will not tolerate political cadres during the questioning of UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. The Chinese government has lodged an official complaint with the Zambian government over the alleged victimization of its nationals living in Zambia. And Zambia currently has a jobs deficit of 1.7 million. And now the news in detail. Copperbelt Province Police Commissioner Charity Katanga has warned that police will not tolerate any political cadres at or near the police station in Ndola, where UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema will appear for questioning on Tuesday. She says her command has put in place adequate measures and that no political cadre will be entertained at the police station. Ms. Katanga has told QTV News by telephone that any political cadre found around the police station will be locked up. She states that these strict measures have been necessitated by the inflammatory statements attributed to UPND sympathizers who are reported to have threatened to cause confusion at the police station. Ms. Katanga explains that in order to avoid this confusion, the police have opted not to allow the cadres at or near the police premises. She has warned that whoever will defy the police directive will be charged with the offense of unlawful assembly. The UPND leader is expected to appear for questioning for allegedly inciting the recent riots in Kitwe after claiming during a live radio program that government had sold Zafiko to the Chinese.
Adequate measures as always. The police station is not a market, so no cadres will be entertained whatsoever. Any cadre will be found around that is going to be locked up. This has been necessitated by inflammatory statements attributed to the sympathizers of UPN who have been saying that they are going to cause confusion. So to avoid their confusion, is first of all not to allow them on the police premises or nearby there. No groupings are going to be tolerated. They will be charged for unlawful assembly.
Okay. Could you tell us the number of police officers that will be deployed?
For security measures, we don't mention the number. But enough and noticeable police officers will be there to patrol around the district and in sensitive places.
Meanwhile, the Zambia Police Service has dismissed reports by a named newspaper that 7 people died in a road traffic accident which happened in Kabangwe area. Police Public Relations Officer Esther Katongo says contrary to what has been reported in the Times of Zambia under the headline 7 perish in road accident, no person died on the spot in the accident. Ms. Katongo has disclosed that only 1 person died in the early hours of yesterday in the University Teaching Hospital UTH, where the injured were rushed for medication. She states that the accident, which occurred at about 14:20 hours near Kabangwe Police Post along Great North Road, involved Watson Zulu of Chazanga Compound, who was driving a Toyota Hiace registration number BAC 4136 and an unknown driver who was driving a Toyota Hiace registration number BAG 4659 who ran away after the accident. Ms. Katongo says the accident occurred due to the excessive speed by the driver of the Toyota Hiace bus registration number BAG 4659 who in the process lost control of the motor vehicle and went to hit into the oncoming bus being driven by Watson Zulu, who also lost control of the vehicle and fell on the left side of the road. She says 15 passengers sustained serious injuries and were rushed to UTH and Chingwere Clinic respectively. Mrs. Katongo says the other victims are still undergoing treatment. State House has received an official complaint from the Chinese government over the alleged victimization of the Chinese people living in Zambia based on falsehoods that they have bought some government enterprises. State House spokesperson Amos Chanda told journalists at State House in Lusaka that the Chinese government sent their envoy Li Ji with a message of regret to President Lungu over what seemed to be xenophobic attacks on the Chinese people in Zambia. The news reports that Mr. Chanda said the Chinese ambassador to Zambia presented the message of regret over the ill treatment of Chinese people to President Lungu at State House in Lusaka. He said the Chinese government is disappointed with some people who are targeting its citizens based on falsehoods that they have bought Zafico, ZNBC and Zesco, among other state enterprises, which he dismissed as a total fabrication. The president's special aide for press and public relations said the falsehood targeted on the Chinese has led to some of them closing their businesses and taking long vacation leave in fear of their attacks. He said the incident, which happened on Copperbelt last week when it was alleged that Chinese have bought Zafico, has not gone well with the Chinese people as they feel threatened that they may be targeted, hence their decision to take vacation. Mr. Chanda said the attacks on the Chinese is uncalled for as the country is a major beneficiary of Chinese investment in the continent. He said President Lungu has since assured the Chinese community and other nationals that they will be protected and their businesses as well. And Mr. Chanda has told the media that the construction of the Memorial Museum for 36 Chinese who died during the construction of the Tazara will proceed in Chongwe district of Lusaka province. He said the president has sanctioned the construction of the museum in Chongwe, which will symbolize the long-standing friendship and cooperation between Zambia and China. Mr. Chanda said all the modalities to ensure that the memorial site is constructed without inconvenience have been put in place and the project will commence. Zambia currently has a jobs deficit of 1.7 million. Speaking when he made a presentation at the Development Finance Associates and CATS International SMEs Access to Credit, the Zambian Challenge Study Paper launch in Lusaka, Development Finance Associates senior partner Trevor Hambai says there is need to create a minimum of 1.2 million jobs by 2030. Mr. Hambai says there is need, therefore, to increase access to finance for local small and medium-sized enterprises SMEs in the country. He says there is need to fund a minimum of 13,000 SMEs on an annual basis for the current 4,000 SMEs that are being funded. Mr. Hambai has also noted the need to build a reliable data source on SME access to finance.
If this was to happen, the SMEs will contribute an additional 24% to our GDP, create 140,000 jobs on an annual basis, and generate $420 million in government tax. It will be good for you to note that the mines at the moment pay this country only $300 million every year in taxes. We need a legal and regulatory framework that supports any possible financing model and strategy. The third is to strengthen the financial infrastructure. Fourth is to design effective government policy that supports these mechanisms. And the fifth is to build a reliable data source on SME access to finance. And lastly is that we need to build financial intermediaries.
Speaking at the same event, Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD Executive Director Isaac Mwaipopo says there is need to ensure there is a legal framework that is adequate enough to support the growth of SMEs in the country.
In a study that we recently conducted when we were assessing the performance of the multi-facility economic zones, one of the things that we learned was that even the operations of the multi-facility economic zones, that's one of the weaknesses that exists. You always see a piece of legislation under ZEA that speaks to the setting up of the multi-facility economic zones, but in terms of a detailed legal framework or policy that gives direction in terms of how they will be organized, we do not find a lot more information with regards to that. That's why when you look at them, when you compare the Zambian-owned multi-facility economic zone compared to those that are owned by the Chinese, like if you look at that one that is near the airport, in terms of performance, you find that some of those that are foreign owned are actually performing better than our own. So there is need to ensure that there is a legal framework that is adequate enough to support the growth of SMEs. In that way, you also begin to deal with some of the gaps. Like when you look at the threshold that Trevor had mentioned for one to set up base in the multi.
And Bankers Association of Zambia Chief Executive Officer Leonard Mwanza says there is more that needs to be done to bridge the gap between the expectations of the SMEs and the bankers.
Top of the list obviously is the fact that it's extremely costly and expensive for someone who is an SME such to access funds from any lender, whether it's a microfinance institution or a banking institution. So what we tend to see is, as well elaborated, that most people actually tend to borrow from families and friends. The bulk of the people who are doing businesses in the markets, the street walkers, the SMEs who are pushing here and there, the people that are moving this economy forward, are actually borrowing money from families and friends. You may not have the statistics in terms of whether they borrow the pay back, but when you look at the banking sector, the ability to pay back is pretty low, or not as one would expect. So we tend to see elevated levels of risk in terms of non-performing loans. Yes, lending is there, but obviously a lot more can be done to make sure that we bridge the gap between the expectation of the SME as well as the bank. The bank will always look at the risk profile of the client. They will look how deep the relationship is. That's why if you look at that report, it's very clear that the bank will actually give you.
The Treasury released a total of 6.1 billion kwacha to finance various operations of the government during the month of October 2018. Out of the 6.1 billion kwacha, 2.4 billion went towards personal emoluments, 1.5 billion kwacha towards debt service, 1.1 billion kwacha towards grants and other payments, while 1.1 billion kwacha was spent on other key programs. In a statement to Q News, Minister of Finance Margaret Mwanakatwa says the 2.4 billion kwacha for personal emoluments went towards timely payment of salaries to various civil servants. Mrs. Mwanakatwa says out of the 1.1 billion kwacha released for grants, universities received 80.1 million kwacha, students' loans and scholarships 99.9 million kwacha, while schools received 60.8 million kwacha. She states that in order to enable implementation of planned activities, the Skills Development Fund was funded 20 million kwacha. Mrs. Mwanakatwe adds that 344.9 million kwacha was also released to grant-aided institutions for their operations, while various ministries received 92 million kwacha. The Finance Minister says in order to restock drugs and medical supplies in hospitals, the Treasury released 150 million kwacha to the Ministry of Health.
But I also want to ensure that in 2019, we reduce our dependence on borrowing from the local market in terms of liquidity. We want to ensure that we don't crowd out the private sector. We talk about a truly private sector-led economy. We want the private sector to lead. We know that non-performing loans are currently at about 11.9%. We've come from the close to 14%. Yes, it's going down. We want to reduce that to below 10%, which is a prudential level that markets look for. We want to go below that. So you see a continued focus to reduce non-performing loans, ensuring that we pay domestic debt. So there is going to be no compromise on fiscal discipline. Ministries, spending agencies, I want to encourage you, implore you to ensure that you remain within your budgeted levels of expenditure. 2019 is nigh. We're only a few weeks away from there. We want to make sure that that budget, and it is huge, is 86.8 billion. We want to ensure that what we said we're going to spend on, we actually spend on that. So I want to encourage you, implore you, and say to you that should we find you wanting in any way vis-a-vis fiscal discipline, we shall not hesitate to take you to book or to task.
Minister of Water Development and Environmental Protection Dennis Wanchinga has implored water utilities to endeavor to win the support of cooperating partners in water and sanitation sector. Dr. Wanchinga says utilities should use resources from cooperating partners prudently so that they can continue to receive the much needed support for current and future programs. Speaking at the first ever sanitation summit in Lusaka with a focus on galvanizing political and multi-sectoral will to addressing the challenges the sector faces, Dr. Wanchinga notes that despite its importance, the sanitation sector has received very little attention. Details in this report.
Though simple in definition, the word sanitation, which in some dictionaries simply means the systems for taking dirty water and other waste products away from buildings in order to protect people's health, actualizing it has continued to be a challenge for Zambia. While other sectors such as water and health have for a long time been receiving attention, very little has been channeled to sanitation. Following this realization, the Zambian government, through the Ministry of Water Development and Environmental Protection, is holding the first ever summit to address challenges the sanitation sector experiences. Speaking when he officially opened the 3-day summit, Minister of Water Development and Environmental Protection Dennis Wanchinga expressed hope that the summit will not only come up with resolutions but ensure that the implementation of solutions to come out of the meeting eradicate the sanitation challenge.
That from the pre-colonial days, colonial period, as well as after independence, there was a lot of focus on improving water supply. But issues of sanitation are lagged behind. So you go around various townships, you go around various areas, issues of sanitation are really lagged behind.
Dr. Wanchinga also used the opportunity to urge water utility companies to ensure they win the trust of various cooperating partners for future financial support through prudent resource spending.
We are currently riding on a wave of goodwill from our operating partners. The water sanitation sector is riding on a good wave of goodwill. We have sustained this goodwill by ensuring that our activities are accountable, our activities are transparent, so that we don't lose the trust which has formed the basis upon their involvement in our programs.
Meanwhile, cooperating partners have reaffirmed their continued support to ensuring that Zambia's sanitation challenges become history.
The inadequate provision of sanitation services is a crisis that is costing Zambia about 1.3% GDP per year, according to recent studies, with Lusaka being the worst affected by poor sanitation, with occasional outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, and dysentery.
UNICEF and many partners gathered here today are strongly committed to our continued and expanded partnership with Zambia to enhance coverage of safe water supply, sanitation, and hygiene services for all children and their communities in the country.
Children too look forward to a Zambia free of sanitation challenges for the betterment of their future. The summit being held under the theme Collective Action Towards Sustainable Sanitation and Hygiene Services for All has drawn participants from across the country who include traditional leaders, experts in the water sector, and cooperating partners. It is everyone's wish that this summit will generate the much needed investment to the sector, especially that Zambia has the opportunity to be a leading example to the Southern African region in the provision of proper sanitation owing to its abundant water resource. Chileshe Mwango reporting for QTV News.
Advocacy Against Child Abuse and Gender-Based Violence Executive Director Belio Nchola has called for the removal of bail and police bond on gender-based violence-related cases, especially rape and defilement cases. Mr. Chola says the release of perpetrators of gender-based violence on police bond and bail is a drawback to the fight against the vice. He has noted with concern that some of the perpetrators go back to the victims to intimidate them upon being released from police custody. Mr. Chola has since appealed to members of parliament to consider removing bail and police bond on gender-based violence-related cases. He states that when a child or person is abused, the psychological effects cannot be easily erased, hence the need to come up with stiff measures to deter would-be offenders.
Our core has been that bail and police bond should be removed from gender-based violence cases, especially on rape cases, especially on defilement cases, because the fight is being put backwards. Because when the perpetrator is arrested, 2-3 hours later they are given bail. What they do is they go and start intimidating the victim. They start playing around with the case. They start destroying evidence. Our core has been, when this person is injured, this person is abused, we compare the abuse of a person, and when somebody steals a vehicle, you will not get a police bond when you steal a vehicle. How about destroying somebody's life? This is how we want the MPs, the parliamentarians to compare, because you are playing with somebody's life. When somebody is abused, when a child is abused at an early age, trust me, the effect is so much. For them to be brought up, for them to be rehabilitated, for them to get back to their feet and say, I'm a woman, is so difficult. So if somebody else...
Rainbow Party Secretary General Winter Kabimba says it is hypothetical thinking for anyone to expect an early election to be called midway of the Patriotic Front's 5-year mandate. Mr. Kabimba says it never happens in Africa that a political party in power can resign and seek a fresh mandate from the people. He tells Q News that opposition political parties calling for an early election should, in this case, focus their attention on issues that are affecting the Zambian people. Mr. Kabimba states that this is especially that the current political dynamics are far different from those in 1991 when first Republican President Kenneth Kaunda succumbed to calls for an early election. He notes that as opposed to the current situation in 1991, there was a wind for change as Zambia was transitioning from a one-party state to multipartism. Mr. Kabimba states that the 1991 scenario cannot run parallel to the present state of affairs in the country. He says the Rainbow Party therefore encourages other political parties to instead campaign for the 2021 general elections and convince the Zambian people why they should be voted to form government.
For us in the Rainbow Party, we are talking about an economy that is going to be driven by Zambians. That's what we are talking about. That's the centrality of our message. The other political parties are talking about bringing in foreign investors to come and create employment. You have foreign investors on the Copper Belt. The Copper Belt has the largest number of foreign investors than any other province. And yet the levels of unemployment are just the same. Meaning that this is not about foreign investment. This is about how Zambians should take up the running of this economy and participate in the economic activities of this country. Zambians have been deprived that opportunity. That is our message. And as we go along, the Zambian people are going to accept this message and internalize it. Okay? That is the difference in the messages. So don't worry about the by-elections. MMD did it, but they still didn't win.
The Lusaka Water and Storage Company says works on the Kafue bulk water supply project have reached 90%. Company Public Relations Manager Patson Piri says most of the construction works have been done and only 10% of the works are remaining. He has also disclosed that the launching of the project, which was supposed to be this year, would delay because of the construction of 2 ZESCO substations in Kafue and Chilanga districts.
We have a project we are calling the Kafue bulk water supply project. This project is expected to bring into Lusaka a total of 50 million liters of water every day to supplement our existing supply regime. Now, this Kafue bulk water supply project, we have so far reached 90% in terms of construction. The only work that is remaining is the 10%, which is just basically doing the final connectivity, the final touches. The pumps have already been arrived, they've already been put there, and what is remaining is just the final small bits. However, the project is going to take long in terms of the launch. The reason is that we are expected to construct 2 substations, because that Kafue bulk is too big to be supplied by the existing power system. So we have to construct 2 substations for electricity at Kafue itself, at the treatment plant. And the second.
Meanwhile, Western Water and Storage Company says it's owed about 3 million kwacha in unpaid bills by various government institutions in Western Province. Company Acting Managing Director Pauline Sakala says this has made it difficult for the company to operate effectively and pay its workers. Mrs. Sakala says the company has not paid its workers for 2 months now. She says some of the institutions owing the water utility company in the province include hospitals, government departments and correctional facilities. Mrs. Sakala hopes government will soon clear the unpaid bills to enable the water utility company to effectively provide water sanitation services to communities in the province.
Meanwhile, we wish we could have industries, which can give us, which can consume our water and give us huge checks. One check you pay all your employees, but we totally depend on domestic customers, whose also payment is maybe less than 70% at the end of the month. So you find we have huge debts from these customers. And also the biggest challenge has been the government. The government is owing the company a lot of money. A lot, I think in the excess of 3 million from unpaid bills. So you know it's such a big challenge that you want to produce water, and this water is produced at a cost. The production cost is going up. Meanwhile, we are not reaping from what we are sowing, so to say.
Public and Private Drivers Association of Zambia PPDAZ President Josiah Majuru has called on the Road Transport and Safety Agency to put in place measures that will compel public transport users to board buses from designated bus stops and stations. Mr. Majuru says the association is concerned by the growing trend where commuters are opting to board buses from undesignated bus stops. He notes that since the increase in the fuel price leading to the subsequent increase in bus fares, very few passengers are boarding buses from stations and designated bus stops. Mr. Majuru is hopeful that RATSA, the police and government will come up with measures to compel passengers to board buses from designated points and bus stops from picking up passengers from undesignated points. He says this is resulting in bus drivers who operate from designated stations to make losses.
When the fares were adjusted upwards, customers are now shunning bus stations. They opt to go into the streets and negotiate. They are shunning the main station, which is intercity. They are opting to go to outskirts where they can negotiate for a lower bus fare. Hence, in these illegal bus stations, people don't pay anything, and the government is losing through the local authorities and the Ministry of Local Government. So we need fair competition where people are working in an environment and in a station, and all of them are paying equal taxes and user fees, not where the people are gaining are those who are not paying anything. The people who are paying taxes and user fees are the ones who are suffering. So really that is a very big challenge which we need RATSA and the Zambia Police to come in and ensure that everyone moves and loads from the stations.
Government has finally released the 2014 Constituency Development Fund CDF for Senga Hill constituency, which was withheld for being dormant. Senga Hill Member of Parliament Kapemba Simbao has confirmed the release of the CDF. Mr. Simbao says money was released after the constituency presented projects it intended to embark on using the money. He says now that the withheld 2014 CDF has been released and government has also released the 2017 CDF, the pressure that had been created by the lack of funds has now been alleviated. Mr. Simbao tells Q News that there are currently a number of projects that are being implemented in Senga Hill as a result of the release of the funds.
On top of that, we've been given our 2017 CDF. So basically in Senga Hill constituents, we have a lot of projects now that are going on. And definitely will be occupied up to the end of this year. and I believe we might not exhaust all the money. So I hope the ministry will not mop it up again, because all of it has been allocated to projects. So if that be the case, then even the beginning of 2018 will be quite busy, 2019.
Breakthrough Cancer Trust has bemoaned the inadequate sensitization and awareness with regards to breast cancer in the country. Trust member and breast cancer survivor Catherine Munaumba says there is very little knowledge out there amongst women on breast cancer, its symptoms and how one can prevent it. Ms. Munaumba tells Q News that sensitization on how women can conduct self-breast examinations need to be enhanced, as most women only get to know about the disease when they are already very sick. She has since advised women, especially those above 40 years old, to take interest in conducting self-tests and visiting the hospital for mammography.
I would encourage all the women out there to learn the symptoms of breast cancer, because mainly, sometimes, most of the time, cancer, when it is starting, it is not painful. And the people come very late to the hospital because they don't know the symptoms of breast cancer. So every woman should go for mammography, especially women above 40. Women should do their self-breast examination every month. That way it's going to help us to reduce breast cancer. Very few women do know how to examine their breast, and very few women they don't know the symptoms of breast cancer.
Okay. Do you think there's enough sensitization?
There isn't enough, because if I go in the ward, sometimes I interview people deliberately. Did you know anything about breast cancer? Most of them, they say they were ignorant. They come to know about cancer when they are already sick. So we need to do much, because not everyone wants a radio, not everyone wants a TV. We may say we will spread the news through the media, but what about people in Kashikishi? They don't even watch TV. So we need to go out one-to-one. It's better.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines once again. Copperbelt Police Chief Charity Katanga has warned that police will not tolerate political cadres during the questioning of UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. The Chinese government has lodged an official complaint with the Zambian government over the alleged victimizations of its nationals living in Zambia. And Zambia currently has a job deficit of 1.7 million kwacha. 1.7 million, I beg your pardon. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Diana Sumbwe. Thank you for watching.